Okay, so we're now live. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the final meeting of List Parish Council for 2020, or final meeting of the Planning Committee for 2020, to be more precise. So we begin with apologies. Lizzie, do we have any apologies, please?
We've had apologies from Councillor Hargreaves.
Okay, thank you. And so now we have
to note that Councillor
Edwards
has resigned from Councillor Edwards has resigned from List Parish Council, so she is no longer a member.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so we move on to declarations of interest, which, as normal, we now have to do this new way, but we're probably all quite used to it by now. So if I begin, I'm Councillor Keith Budden, Chairman of List Parish Council Planning Committee. I confirm that I have read the minutes, I've read the public deputations that have been received, and I have no interest to declare in any of the items on tonight's agenda. Claire, can I go to you next, please?
You have, okay. Right.
I'm Councillor Williams. I'm a member of the Planning Committee. I've read all of the items on the agenda and have no interests to declare in any of them.
Thank you. Sheila? You're mute, Sheila.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. My name is Sheila Baldwin. I'm a member of the List Parish Council Planning Committee. I confirm I've read the minutes and the deputation, and I have no interest to declare in any item on the agenda.
Thank you. Howard?
I'm Howard Lindsley. I'm a member of List Parish Council Planning Committee, and I've read the agenda and other documents, and I have no interest to declare.
Thank you. Nick?
I'm Councillor Nick Wilson, member of the Planning Committee. I've read the agenda and the relevant applications. I have no pecuniary interest to declare, but I would like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in Rycroft, as I live directly opposite that site, and in the Triangle, as I sit on the Board of Trustees as the link governor.
Okay, thank you. Don?
Thank you, Chair. Just by the way, I had tremendous difficulty getting in just now, Keith. I couldn't get in for about 10 minutes.
All right.
Suddenly, that's what Howard was trying to pass you that message. Anyway, I got in just now. So I am Don Gerard. I'm a member of the List Parish Council.
Difficulty hearing.
Sorry, I'm Don Gerard. I'm a member of the List Parish Council Planning Committee, and I've read the agenda and I have no interest to declare.
Thank you, Don. And Sue?
I'm Sue Halstead. I am a co-opted member of the List Parish Council Planning Committee. I have read the minutes, the agenda, and all the deputations received, and I have no pecuniary interest to declare. Like Councillor Wilson, I am a trustee of the Triangle, so I have a non-pecuniary interest there.
Okay, thank you. And
I have no voting rights. I do not vote.
No. Thank you, Sue. And also in attendance taking the minutes is our Assistant Clerk, Lizzie Keeling. So we move on to the approval of the minutes of the meeting of the 9th of November. They've been previously circulated. Can I have someone to propose the minutes, please? Claire, and someone to second? Sheila, thank you. Everyone happy with the minutes? Yeah. Thank you. Anyone have any matters arising from the minutes? No, good, okay. Public deputations, as you know, we've had 2 public deputations. We've had one for 15 Old School Road, and we've had one for the Whistle Stop. So given that I'm aware that people for Old School Road and for the Whistle Stop are viewing the proceedings this evening, I'm going to propose that we take the whistle stop first and then 15 Old Stall Road, and then we'll revert back to the rest of the applications as they are on the agenda. So if we turn to the whistle stop application first, it's for a detached dwelling and garage following partial demolition of the pub outbuilding, including new access, reconfiguration of the pub car park and associated landscaping. Lizzie, are you able to bring up the documents for us, please?
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
What would you like to see?
I think if first of all we could see the proposed site layout plan. Okay, so this is the proposal, which is to build a new house and with an external garage on the Village Hall side of the existing car park. As I think everyone present knows, but just in case you don't, originally we had an issue with this because the application site was right up to the boundary with the Village Hall, which would have given us an issue with the fire escape from the rear of the Village Hall. I would like to commend the applicants for responding very quickly to our request on that. And so they've moved the site over slightly to allow a path, which Liz is indicating now, for the fire exit to still go down. Now, obviously that will mean sacrificing the border that's there at the moment, because people can't currently walk down that bit of land. But at least it means that we will be able to maintain the fire exit. And as I said, I'd like to thank the developers for responding very quickly on that request. The only other thing only other comment I think I'd like to make at this stage is I do have a concern about the fact that the entrance to the driveway of the proposed property comes out within the boundary of the existing bus stop markings on the road on Hillborough Road. I don't believe that's a significant issue, but it is an issue. And I think particularly it will be around a time when not actually the public buses, because they're now only once every 2 hours, but the buses that pick up and drop off from Stall from Bowhunt, I think might be an issue. So really now, I guess I'm going to throw it open to everyone else. And who'd like to go first? Sue?
Well, thank you, Keith. I find this application rather disappointing. I doubt I should be happy with any development in this location. But if there is to be development, I feel quite strongly that this central part of our conservation area deserves better than what is being proposed here. I would describe this house as what I would call an anywhere house. Our village design statement, the local development plan, policy 9, and the National Parks Policy SD5 all call for high quality design, which respects and enhances the character and local distinctiveness of the conservation area and does not harm it. So I disagree with the applicant who claims that his proposal does that. The gable and windows on the side of the village hall facing the car park are a particularly characterful element of the village hall, and they will be largely hidden by this new house. And it seems to me that it might also result in a considerable loss of light for the village hall. A distinctive feature of existing small homes within the conservation area are attractive gabled porches and detailed gables to the roofline. That's completely absent from this proposal. Materials will be critical, and I'm pleased that a slate roof is proposed, but I'm less sure about the red brick finish. Again, most of the existing smaller homes in the conservation area and the pub itself are rendered. I have noted the revision which you pointed out about the fire exit down the side of the village hall. However, I still have some misgivings given that the exit runs down alongside the village hall by the kitchen wall and window, which seems to me to be a likely starting point for a fire. And I wonder whether this route has had the approval of the fire safety officer and whether there is a viable assembly point. Parking, I really believe that this is a critical issue. I'm not convinced that the retaining 10 spaces will be sufficient for the pub, not least because this pub is particularly favoured by builders and workmen at the end of their working day, and is a popular meeting spot with these people who tend to have rather large white vans which overspill standard car parking sizes. And I note from the deputations we've received from the applicant that he does seem to accept that there may be a need for more parking spaces. And the study, the transport study that he produced, has identified in blue on the plan local streets without parking restrictions. Many of these identified streets serve terraced houses which already struggle to provide sufficient on-street parking in these streets to meet the needs of their own residents. And an alternative suggestion made by the applicant is the car park behind Tesco's. The applicant may not be aware that this is not a publicly operated car park. It is in fact a private car park owned and managed for the 45 flats and 6 shops in the block. It could be closed at any time. The LNDP policy 15 makes this point very clearly and states that additional car parking to serve the village centre should be encouraged. You mentioned yourself the access to the property across the bus stop where parking is not permitted. On-site parking is proposed as a garage with a further parking space in front of the house. Now, this sort of configuration is not now supported by the emerging national park parking strategy, and our village design statement states that all future developments should have reasonable access to off-road parking, which should be located to the rear of the property or suitably hidden within the street seam. I must say I had first assumed that this area in front of the house was a turning space required to avoid vehicles having to reverse onto the main road by the bus stop. But it is in fact a parking space, and then cars will be forced to back into the bus stop or across the bus stop into the main road. And my final point concerns the boundary treatment. The wrought iron fencing and planting that fronts the Whistle Stop car park was designed and funded by EHDC's conservation area enhancement scheme after our conservation area was designated. So preserving the boundary in a suitable fashion should be very important and incorporated clearly into the scheme. It's not actually mentioned, I don't think. So I have quite a lot of concerns, and I'm quite interested to hear what anybody else has to say.
Okay, Claire, what are your thoughts on this?
I wholeheartedly agree with everything that Sue has said and have pretty much the same notes myself. The only thing I have to add to that is that the noise impact survey was done in October this year, which is not a good reflection of how noisy the pub is at night.
Yeah, I take your point because of lockdown and curfew and everything else. Yeah,
And it is very, very, very noisy.
Sheila.
Well, I've got quite a lot to add to that too. I looked at the parking survey, which was taken up presumably to justify the reduction of car parking spaces, backed up by a totally unrealistic photo of the junction. I've never ever seen it so bare of traffic. And basically, one of the reasons that people don't use the pub car park, why it is, fairly empty at times, is because of the difficulty of exiting it, which is a problem that would be faced by the residents of the new development. There have already been several near misses there. One bad accident I know of. It's due to it being a busy roundabout. Constant traffic from Mill Road, exacerbated when traffic's held up by the delivery lorries, the brewery lorries, and from Station Road, especially after traffic's been held up for up to 10 minutes at the level crossing. There's often a tailback from the hill brow end when the level crossing's down. People park on the double yellow lines. Okay, they shouldn't, but they do, so visibility is reduced. And I've also got the bus stop. But I notice in the section on highway-related issues with access, they've actually admitted that, quote, there will be short delays for residents seeking to enter or exit, unquote. So it looks as though they've already realised that themselves. Mention of a vehicle crossover, I'm not sure what that is. Back to the noise impact assessment, it's absolutely full of subjunctives. The mention of the noise levels for the new residents from the car park is peppered with should not, may not, might not. So there's nothing actually definite, may not even be audible, which suggests that actually, yes, it might be. The other thing is I noticed that the neighbours have objected on the grounds of privacy and the sunlight blocked off. And there seemed to be a contradiction in the letter from the tenant, who, unsurprisingly, given she wants to renew her tenancy, agrees with Punch's application. And on the one hand, she states that, quote, the development will facilitate an investment to help continue the viability of Whistle Stop, presumably financially. But then she goes on to say that actually the proposal will have no impact on the operation of the business. So which is it? And I wasn't sure about the outbuilding because it says that one is being partially demolished, but from that drawing that Lizzie put up just now, there seems to be quite a substantial outbuilding in the plan with, so I'm not sure if that's part of the...
Yeah, just to clarify on that, Sheila, it's being shortened. So where Lizzie's got the mouse now, the hatched part there, or the sort of semi-hatched part, is the end part, which the publican currently uses as a double garage. It's that bit which is being demolished. The bit that I think most of the skittle hall will still be there.
Right. And then the last thing I said, I'm not quite sure about, as it talked about 4 trees and hedges. If they're going, well, that doesn't quite tally with the idea that they want to sustain the landscape and, Anyway, that's what I wrote down.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Sheila. Howard.
Yes, basically I agree with Sue and the other comments that people have made. I would just expand a couple of those comments. There was a claim that what was described as on-street parking had a maximum occupation of 44%, and that left 100 spaces, which means they'd identified a minimum of 178 total spaces. And I just would like to see where those 178 spaces are, because it seems quite a lot for the village centre. The other thing I would say on noise impact, this is clearly more difficult in the summer when you've got people outside and you've got windows open in houses. And in fact, the pub in Gretham, they sold off part of their land for some houses, and that has caused a lot of problems between the pub and the local residents. So, you know, if anybody wants to go and look and compare the two sites, you'll see why in the summer it has not worked well, and it's caused nuisance to local residents. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Howard. Don.
Thank you, Keith. I've really got exactly the same as what Howard just said. I totally agree with what Sue said. I totally agree with what Sheila said. The parking is a big problem, and then we did have that problem in Gretham. I spent a fortune in legal fees fighting it at the time, as some of you may remember. But the problem with the parking is there are guidelines that the inspectors are allowed to follow as to how many spaces they can provide in particular environments. But that doesn't stop us protesting about the lack of adequate parking. But I basically agree with what Sue said. So so I go back to objecting right from the beginning.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Nick.
Apologies, I couldn't find my unmute because of the thing on the screen. Keith, just to say, my first point is I too appreciate the applicants being prepared to provide us with the fire escape path along the village hall, but also for a reason which is rather current, which is that we need to do some quite substantial refurbishment of the village hall, which I was looking at this morning. And we'll need, amongst other things, to erect scaffolding on that side of the village hall. So having some space that isn't somebody else's garden, I think will be useful from that point of view as well. I suppose my feeling about it was rather more positive than other members of the committee, in that I think that car park is a sort of rather unattractive and underutilized asset in the village. And I would quite like to have seen something put there which would enhance the look of the village centre. I bow to Sue in terms of whether this particular design adds much. It doesn't, on the face of it, from the drawings that I've seen. And I think it would be quite difficult to make this rather small plot into something more exciting. But I think I would say that I'm more favourably disposed towards doing something on that plot than doing nothing. Having said that, it seems to me that I think that, as I understand it, there would be 2 parking spaces for the house, one of which would be the garage. And my suspicion is that the garage would actually be used for other things, in which case there would be 1 parking space, and the chances are that we would be adding yet another car to the people trying to find parking spaces. And so to me, the parking provision for the house itself is inadequate. As far as the pub parking goes, I may have got this wrong, but it looked to me as though the beer garden was going to expand in size as compared with the present layout. And I wondered, if there is a problem with parking, the pub might have to be prepared to consider expanding the parking space at the cost to some of the beer garden. I just also wondered whether the parking spaces, they look rather tight, and whether they are adequate for modern cars, given the issue of width that's been featuring in the national papers recently. So, as I say, I'm not as hostile as others may have sounded, but I'm not sure that this is the right proposal.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think I certainly pick up the broad sense of where people are coming from here. I too have got concerns about the 10 spaces in the car park, particularly because if, as the documentation indicates, the landlord of the pub is currently using the space at the end there that's being demolished as a double garage, then potentially there's 2 cars into the car park already from just the pub. So you know, from the publican. So that leaves 8 spaces for members of the public. I do appreciate though that the use of that car park is, as Sue said, a bit difficult to judge in terms of it's really difficult to tell, although that car park is busy, quite how many of the people in the car park are in the pub and how many of them are actually using it to pop across to Tesco's, which I know is a perennial problem that the publican has had with that car park. Indeed, I think a few of us remember a few years ago when the publican at the time put a chain across whilst there were cars parked in there, which caused a bit of a commotion. So if I'm picking up the mood of the meeting correctly, and I think I am, then I'm going to say that I think our recommendation on this is going to be a strong objection. And objection on the grounds of A, that we do not believe the parking for the house itself is demonstrated to be sufficient, even though it is on paper. But we're all aware that garages tend, especially these days, and particularly with a relatively small house, tend to not be used as garages. We have concerns about the 10 spaces for the pub parking, and certainly I'd like to see a bit more evidence on that, I think, because as Claire mentioned, the problem we've got is that both of the surveys for parking and noise have been done whilst we've been on essentially a state of lockdown, which is a very unreal state to where hopefully we normally get back to, he says, with a caveat around it of will that ever happen, but let's hope it does. We have concerns that the design of the house is insufficiently ambitious for its placement within a conservation, within the conservation area. I personally am not too concerned about the comment that one of the neighbours made about overlooking and overshadowing, because I think actually the distance is sufficient that neither of those will be significant. So I think that's our position of largely what we're objecting to. I think to then turn that slightly and say if the officers are minded to give it permission, then I think we would like to see conditions to ensure that the indicated boundary treatment is actually provided, that those hedges do actually get put in. We'd certainly want a condition that the garage remained ancillary to the property and not used as habitable accommodation. And anyone else, any other conditions we'd want to impose if they are going to give permission? So any thoughts?
Oh, I know, I'm hoping it doesn't happen that way, but have we said enough about the design?
Well, so I think I've said it. I feel we just think it's unambitious. But you know, I think there's something more that could be done, because at the moment it's a it's what I was called an Argos catalogue house. It could be anywhere.
I think we should point in our objection. We should point to various policies that require something more.
Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
think we should just say unambitious. I think we should back
Yes,
it up
we can draw
by
up the
saying that there, you know, we've got plenty of good policies there.
yes, we can quote the policies from the neighbourhood plan.
Is there something to be said about reversing onto Hillborough Road to get out?
Yes, that's a good point. Yes, so we have concerns about access into the site, both from the point of view of the bus stop and from the point of view that it may be that we'd like to see. I think I'd like to see a tracking diagram to show that vehicles can exit from that site in fourth gear.
I think it's also significant that they've admitted themselves that there might be, quote, short delays for residents seeking to enter or exit. You know, the fact that they themselves have recognised that it's not going to be easy to exit onto Hillborough Road.
Yes, yeah.
Having said that, though, if I may just follow that up, my observation is that the use of that car park by Tesco shoppers is that people whiz in and whiz out, and actually this might lead to a reduction in the number of vehicles exiting from that side of the road. So I don't think we should overplay that point.
Yeah, okay.
But it will therefore add to the pressure on Tesco's own car park on the other side of the road, which I think we should, in our objection, question the total ability or sensibility even of parking elsewhere. We ain't got it. It's not feasible.
No.
Particularly, I think places like Shotterfield Terrace, and where you look and see where all those blue marks are, when they say there's parking, it's just not on.
No. And I think the problem is, I mean, I'd accept the point that further up the road on the other side of the road, obviously you've got the main Hillborough Road car park, but we know from experience that people just do not park there and walk down to Tesco's. That's a whole different issue which we could spend all evening talking about, but they don't. And so that's also there, I think. Okay, I think we've got enough on that one. So if we can move then to 15 Old Stall Road.
Keith?
So
yes.
Shouldn't we have a vote on this? Shouldn't we have a vote on this, Chairman? I think we should have a vote.
Okay, we can have a vote on. If I thought it was pretty obvious which way we were going, but yeah, I'm happy to have a vote.
Can I make one further point, Keith, before we do that?
Mm-hmm.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I hadn't thought of it before, and somebody mentioned it. The fire exit going down the side is actually extremely dangerous if the fire is in the hall, which it would be if people are evacuating from the hall, because what you might get as somebody goes under the windows, the fire blows the windows out.
Yes, that's true.
So really, there's an easy way around that, to have the fire escape going along the bottom of the garden.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's a good point, Howard. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to put this to the vote then. So can I have a show of hands in favour of those who support the idea that we should strongly object to this application? I think that's everyone. Yeah, that's unanimous. So thank you. Okay, so we move on to 15 Old Stall Road, which is a single-storey rear extension following the removal of the existing conservatory. So there's the existing plan with the conservatory on the back, and the new plan shows the replacement extension. Now, on the face of it, the area doesn't look any the area with the extension doesn't look any different, but it's the height which is causing the issue, because at the moment, obviously, the conservatory height is just over 6 feet, I would guess, having had a quick look at it from the roadside. And the new extension will be higher. Can you bring up the other drawing, Lizzie? Oh, it should both be on that drawing somewhere. Sorry, I wasn't.
That me. Oh yeah, there's another one. Sorry.
All right. Okay. So that's a new extension, which is in horizontal distance is about the same, but the plan here will extend the existing main roof height out as far as the end of the new extension, albeit with a hipped roof rather than the gable as it is at the other end. And that potentially does give some concern. I mean, one of the things which I would say is that, as a general rule, we have within our planning policies that extensions should appear to be yes, lower than it's clearly identifiable to the main property, whereas here they've carried on at the same height of the roof. So personally, I'd like to see the roof lowered for a little bit for that anyway. But even if we do that, obviously the roof's going to be higher over the extension than it is currently, which potentially gives an issue to the neighbouring properties. So any thoughts? I'll go to Howard first on this one. Howard, any thoughts?
No, I agree with the comments you've made. I haven't been able to go and look at it, but I agree completely with your comments.
Okay, thank you. Nick?
The height was the issue that I'd focused on. I mean, I did wonder whether a flat roof in this situation would be preferable, although I'm not keen on flat roofs. There was the issue that were raised in the deputation about the windows at the side.
Yeah.
But there are windows already on the side.
Yes.
In the main house, and I'm assuming as it's a conservatory that's there at the moment, it's that is glass as well.
Yes.
So I wasn't, to be honest, very persuaded by that objection.
No.
But I do have sympathy about the issue of the height.
Yeah. Sheila.
Well, I put down originally because I looked at it before the neighbours contacted us, and I put down that I see the objection, but there's nothing about the impact on neighbouring property. And then, of course, we got the objection by the neighbours. I haven't been round there either, so I can't see it. And I also put down, if the new build's roof is no higher than the existing conservatory, I see no problem. But you're saying that actually it's going to be higher?
Yes. Yeah, because the existing conservatory roof is literally just at the top of the conservatory, so it's probably 6 feet off 7 feet off the ground to the apex, whereas this obviously is up at the height of the main bungalow. Claire.
I have that we would welcome a solid roof over a glass roof for the dark skies thing.
Yeah.
But agree that it's possibly too high, and if it could be lowered, that would be great.
Okay. And Don.
No, I've got nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. So I think we're going again, I think this one we might need to put to the vote actually, because I'm unsure whether we feel strongly enough about it to object or not. So can I let's first of all get that established, because then I can think of the wording that we can use. Can I have a show of hands of those who have no objection to this, so they're happy for it to go ahead? Just Sheila. Okay.
No, I think there should be a consideration. I think we need to say that we do have worries about the height,
yeah,
etc. And maybe they'll come back and say, right, we're going to lower it.
Okay, yeah. So can I say then that as a committee, our view is that we object to this application on the grounds that the roof line is not subservient to the main building, which is against policy. Although we welcome the solid roof rather than the conservatory, as that will contribute to the South Downs Dark Night Skies initiative. And so we would, if the officers are minded to go ahead, we would like to see the ridge height lowered, if at all possible. Is that a fair summary? Yeah. Nick?
I thought it was fair until that last bit. I think we're objecting on the grounds of height,
Yeah.
but not to the principle of it.
No, we're not objecting to the principle.
So if they were to come back with a proposal which ensured a solid roof at a lower level, they would have our support.
Yes, yeah. Okay, we can play around with, and Liz and I will come up with some suitable wording on that, but I think that should be fine. Howard?
No, sorry, I just changed it because for some reason I keep getting muted.
All right, okay, no problem.
Well, what I was going to say there was that we should put some reasoning behind the height objection, why we're objecting, rather than just the height.
Yeah, I'm going to say A, it's policy, and B, because of the effect on the neighbouring. Yeah, neighbouring property. Okay, so we move back to the agenda then in order, and we go to Linton in Hatch Lane, which is for a glass house, a shed, and a summer house, and landscaping of the garden. So Linton is the property opposite Stanley's. As you go up, he'll go up Hatch Lane out of the village. It's a bungalow property, I think, from memory.
Yes.
And if we can go to the other drawing, Lizzie.
Can I ring you back?
That one. Yeah. So the proposal is to put a home office right down the end of the garden, effectively hidden under the tree, a greenhouse, and a shed next to the property. And the applicant says that none of these will be visible from Hatch Lane itself because of the boundary treatment, and I suspect that's probably true, because the boundary treatment is quite dense there. Anything they want to say on this one?
I'm not sure how these bits might contribute to a 30%.
No, that's very true. I think from just from looking at it, I think it's probably okay, but I agree we need the officers to check that it's within the 30%. Anyone else, anything they want to say on this one? No. So I think then we're going to say no objection. subject to the officers confirming that it fits within the 30% policy for expanding the amount of space. Everyone happy with that?
Mhm.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So then we move on to Long Barrow Barn, Farnham Road, and this is really a legal issue, which is a lawful development certificate for existing use, land of residential use as a garden, which is just the pocket of land indicated in red on the plan. The blue indicates the rest of the land that's in the ownership of the property. As I say, it's really a legal decision on whether it is lawful development or not. But my personal view from the evidence that was provided, and particularly photographs, would seem to show that it's been in use as a residential garden for quite some time. And so unless anyone has anything to raise, I think our view on this is going to be no objection.
I concur.
Everyone happy? Just with no objection on that one? Thank you. So we then move on to 1 Rushfield Road, which is a single-storey extension to the side.
What would you like to look at, Chair?
Good question. I think, can we look at the
Sorry.
yeah,
It's the side, isn't it?
play dodge the words here. Every time I think, oh, that's the one I want, then it moves. Can we look at the site plan, please, Lizzie?
Sorry, just to make it really confusing for you. Site plan.
The one right at the end, bottom right.
Yeah, okay.
So this is the proposed extension onto the side. It's a corner plot for the property, and basically the roof there is it's only a single-story extension, and the roof is subservient. It comes under the first floor windows on the property. There's obviously plenty of space there beside it, and there are other properties in Newfield Road that have had extensions in the past. So
Rushfield Road, not Newfield.
Rushfield Road, I beg your pardon. Rushfield Road that have had extensions. And so it's not setting the precedent in terms of the street scene. Anybody got any comments on this
Oh,
one?
I'm sorry.
Sue?
No.
No? Anyone got anything? Otherwise, we'll just do no objection.
Right.
Everyone happy
I
with
agree,
that
no
on this
objection.
one? Yeah, okay, thank you. So we then move on to Cumbers Studio, 31 Andrews Road, which sees an increase to part of the roof height, a single-story extension to the side and the rear, and change of use of part of the site from public community lands to private gardens.
Is this the one we looked at quite recently?
It is, yeah. And at the time, our only thing was ensuring the change of usage with the garage. And I don't think anything has changed really from our perspective. The only reason that the application has changed is because of the fact they've now got this. I don't know why I'm pointing at the screen because you can't see where I'm pointing, but they've got this area of grass now and garden which they've gained from Carla. It was originally, this pocket of land was public community land as a buffer between the development and the property, but they've now negotiated with Carla to have that parcel of land transferred into the ownership of the Cumbers Studio. But since, in a way, we only wanted that parcel of land so that there was a buffer between the development and Cumbers Studio, I personally am not going to get worked up about the fact that the ownership is changing. Has anybody got anything they want to say on this one? Otherwise, I think we just stick with our original.
So
comment.
by how much has the roof been heightened?
That's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head, Sheila.
I mean, will that have an impact?
I don't think it will, to be honest. It's reasonably insignificant. I mean, my only personal concern with the roof is the pure number of roof lights that the building now has. So I think that reinforces our statement from last time of wanting to make sure they're fitted with some blind or some device, which means that they become opaque at dusk, so that the light doesn't project up into the sky. Especially given that we spent quite a bit of time with the development in Charter trying to make sure that they wouldn't have any major streetlights that would project light into the sky. Nick?
Well, that was my one concern. I think we should just take the opportunity to reinforce our view about that. But on the overall proposition, departing from any planning guidance that I might slightly be aware of, I just wrote down fair enough. I mean, if I had 70 houses plonked on my doorstep, I think this is the least I would like to be able to achieve. So I think it's probably a very fair proposition, personally.
Yeah. Okay, so I think other than the comments we made last time, I think we're going to stick with those comments. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Okay, so then we move on to Wetham Farmhouse, Wetham Lane in Lith, and this is for listed building consent for some external and internal alterations, including the installation of windows and doors of the existing attached garage with proposed use as a residential annex. Can you bring up the proposed elevations, please, Izzy?
Could I just raise a point for clarification, Keith?
Mm-hmm.
I read the heritage statement. Is that it's not signed or it's not clear who wrote it? Can we assume it's the applicant who wrote it?
I think we have to assume it's the applicant. Yeah. As you say, it is anonymous. So, if you can scroll up a little bit, Lizzie, so we can see the front elevation. My personal view was that from an appearance point of view, I think this is a major improvement compared to the garage which was there. And I think that they've obviously indicated that the windows will be very similar to the windows in the existing property, which I think is important, given that the building is listed. And I mean, I don't know what I'd come to others, obviously, get your views, but my view was that as long as there was still sufficient parking, then I couldn't really see any objection on this. Howard, anything you want to add?
No, I'm fine with it.
Sheila?
Well, I've got written down, would it exceed 30%, or does that not count if the 1960s annex was already there?
Yes, it won't count. It's because it's not increasing the space.
Because the annex was
already there.
Yeah. Well, in that case, no, I've got no objection.
Sue, any concerns?
No, I didn't at all.
Okay.
Providing it remains as an annex.
Yes. Okay, that's a good point. So I think then no objection, providing there is still sufficient parking, which I'm fairly certain there is, and also a condition that that part of the building remains an annex and ancillary to the main building and doesn't become a separate dwelling.
Do we need to say something about the roof lights?
Yes, I mean, we could put in a normal condition, Nick, on the roof light. Yeah. Okay. So
we also have to put something about the listed building conservation officer having to agree with it as well.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, they will anyway, but yes, that's a good point there. Okay, that's good. So we now move on to, this time, to Newfield Road. I knew we had one in Newfield Road, which is the conversion of the roof space to habitable accommodation with roof lights to the front and a dormer to the rear. It's a end of terrace house, one of the small terraces in Newfield Road. I don't know if you can bring up the proposed elevations, please, Lizzie. That one, yeah. And so the proposal is for at the front of the house to have just skylights in three roof lights in the roof, and then at the rear of the house to have this dormer. I've got to confess I've not had time to go around to Newfield Road to have a look at this one. Sue, are you aware whether any of the other houses like that have a dormer in Newfield Road?
Not that I know of, and I have been round and had a look. You can't see too much at the back, at least I wasn't able to. I do have concerns about this because Newfield Road is a sort of strange mix of houses. Some of them are newer and others are older and they're different shapes and sizes. But this terrace is one of the older terraces, I think, and is probably the most attractive terrace in the road. And
yeah.
So I think this is a little disappointing, and I just wonder what the impact is on the neighbours of that at the back. It's a bit like the streets that we were talking about with the whistle stop. There's an awful lot of on-street parking with being terraces. These haven't got these. Some of the houses in Newfield Road have got parking garages at the back, but I don't think these have.
I don't think so.
So the parking on street is pretty tight there. So with extra large bedrooms, there's probably requirement for more parking, and I just think it's overdevelopment, I think. And the possible impact on the neighbours.
Yes. Okay. Don, any thoughts on this one?
I'd support that. Yes, I agree with that. I think it's overdevelopment.
Howard?
Yes, I likewise. I mean, when I've been to Newfield Road, I've always felt there's quite a lot of cars parked there already.
Yeah, it does always seem to be very busy with parked cars, I'd agree. So, Sheila?
Well, like Sue, I've jotted down that the rear windows, not so much the front windows, but the rear dormer windows, will certainly have a good view of the neighbour's garden, but I don't know if the neighbours objected. Can I just ask, at one stage it looked as though it was saying there were two options for the proposed roof.
Right. No, I think that is just that. I think the architect must have given the occupant two options, and they've chosen option 2. I think because all the occupants refer to option 2.
Okay. It is the rear windows. I don't think the front windows are going to particularly.
No, I mean, I think the front windows are, are roof lights. They are what they are, but it's to me it is the bulk of this extension at the back. And again, if you look at the side view there, where it comes out by the chimney, it's quite, it's not a small dormer. It's effectively all that side of the property. Claire, anything?
Nothing more to add than what's already been said.
And Nick?
I think again there was a Velux window or windows involved. We ought to just
there are the front,
add that as well in terms of if it was, let's go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So I think then, unless anyone's going to contradict me, I'm going to say strong objection on grounds of overdevelopment. We have concerns about the effect of the windows at the rear on the amenity of the neighbours. We have concerns about the sheer bulk of the rear dormer, and we have concerns about the implication that may have on parking, because if it forces additional parking, then that presents a problem in Newfield Road. if the officer is minded to give permission, then we would ask for the normal dark skies condition to be added to the roof light.
Should we also say something about if this gets approved, it sets a precedent for everyone else to do it and completely ruin the terrace?
We can certainly mention that. Yeah.
Or something more eloquent.
I get the gist of where you're going. So yeah, we can. Everyone happy on that one? Okay, so we move on then to Brickfield, Hawkley Road, and this is another lawful development certificate for use as a residential garden. It's must admit, it's lawful development for residential garden feels a bit like London buses. You don't get any for years and two come along at once. But again, to my mind, it's quite clear that this has been a garden for quite some time. I noticed that Hawkley Parish Council on this one have also commented, and they don't have any objection. And unless anybody's going to come up with a real striking reason, I can't see any reason we should object to this. No,
I agree.
okay.
Agree.
Okay, so then we come on to the Triangle Community Centre. This is an extension of planning permission for something that they've already had permission for, which is for 2 glazed canopies, one to the front and one to the side of the building. Oh, excuse me. My personal view is that given that they've had permission for it and nothing really has changed in the intervening 3 years, I can't see any real reason to object to extending the permission. Don?
No, I just agree. I agree. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so we go with no objection on that one. And so then we come to Rycroft, the Annex 76 Forest Road, which is a proposal for 3 dwellings following the demolition of the annex. If I can just give a little bit of background on this one, as members will remember, we saw this one a few months ago when they actually wanted to be 4 dwellings, and we objected to that and said that we would rather it was 3. So in that sense, I guess it's good that the developer appears to have listened. There was also a question about whether the annex was its own separate building, and the officers now have awarded that with lawful development certificate. So they've accepted that it is a separate dwelling. So this is actually going up from, although it appears to be going from 1 to 4, it's actually going from 2 to 4. Anyone, any comments? I'll go to Sheila first on this one, I think.
Well, I just feel we've been here before, and, you know, in the interim, they then wanted to ask to attach the annex to the main house and what have you. And now they've gone back to the extra houses in the garden. I noticed, I don't know who it was wrote, I'm unable to locate the proposed 8 spaces adjacent to the properties. Is that the number of car spaces?
Yeah, yeah.
And presumably it was some official who wrote that. One of the reasons we objected before was that they would be so visible from the wreck.
Yes, yeah.
And they still will be. I mean, there's one tree at the bottom of house 2, and that seems to be, you know, I just feel they're sort of wasting our time. They keep coming back to us. I'm also a bit worried about the access, which is on the brow of a hill opposite Newfield Road.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, not the best place to have up to cars leaving or entering. And in one of the drawings, the vehicle access drawing, there's a mention of a private drive to 5 dwellings. Is that something they've left? They should have taken out.
I think it probably is. Yeah.
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 But I just think it's access, which is in quite a dangerous place, especially given the speed some traffic goes through the village, and also the fact that they now will be very visible from the wreck and can look out over the wreck.
Yes. Yeah. Nick.
Well, as Sheila says, we have been here before. And last time we basically said, we don't want 4, 3 would be all right. So I think to actually to question the whole viability of the scheme would be a bit perverse, frankly. Having said that, I would want to be satisfied that there is adequate parking for each of the houses. And I'd wondered whether, obviously in an attempt to raise to make as much money out of this as possible, the developers have tried to squeeze 2 4-bedroom houses and a 3 into space which would be more reasonable to be no more than 2 3-bedroom and 1 4. So my instinct is we should focus on the parking issue.
Yes. Yeah.
But I would agree with Sheila about screening.
Yes, no, I agree there.
And I noted one of the neighbours on the right-hand side of the plan as we're looking at it is concerned about the fencing.
Yeah,
I think we can make a general point about screening along the recreation ground.
Yes, yeah.
Having said that, I would apply that also to the main Rycroft building, which has now had its garden decimated and is now completely bare of vegetation. So the wreck is now going to be looking at potentially 4 buildings.
Yeah, good point. Okay. Sue.
Yes, can we go back to the previous drawing that we saw, please? Not that one, that one. Yes.
That one, yeah.
I have huge difficulty in really convincing myself that all that works with the parking. It's, they show turning here and turning there and 2 spaces and half a space, and I think we need to make sure that the relevant officers are convinced that this can work. And
yes,
the visitor parking is up here on the.
It's on the corner, isn't it?
On the corner, and people are delivery lorries. We all know at the moment the number of delivery lorries that are around, or vans. They'll all be coming in here. I just think it looks like a cramped development with potential real problems with parking.
Yes, yeah.
And I support what everybody's saying about the boundary. I was horrified when I saw them cutting it all down the other day.
Okay. Don, any thoughts?
Well, I haven't really got my pen to add again. I think it's truly horrible. I think there's far too many houses in there, but I do remember it was 4 that was proposed before, I think it was. And obviously the parking and access is a serious problem. But I'm afraid I can't see a planning ground to object other than pointing that out.
Yeah. Howard.
Yes, I'll go with Don. I mean, when I first looked at this, the one word that came to mind was cramped. And the parking van issue is something that's not going to go away. Increasingly, people are having stuff delivered. I just feel it's too much on too small an area, but as somebody's pointed out, go for the planning of the car parking.
Yeah. Okay. Claire,
I kind of disagree a little bit, actually. So, part of our objection last time round was that we felt that 4 houses was too many. So they've reduced it to 3, but they've made them bigger. It's every
Yes.
bit as much house, just in fewer pieces. So
Yes.
I think our objection to overdevelopment still stands.
Yes, I'm minded to agree with you on that. I think I think what I'm picking up is that we object on the grounds that we believe that although there is the reduction from 4 properties to 3, which we asked for, given that the size of the properties has increased, we still believe it to be overdevelopment of the site. We remain to be convinced about the parking arrangements, and so we would ask that that's thoroughly checked by the relevant officer, and that should the officer be minded to give permission, that we would request very strongly that there should be consideration given to the boundary treatment to the existing properties at the rear, but more importantly, from our perspective, to the recreation ground, because it's not acceptable to totally decimate that boundary, because that boundary is important. And of course, also, if you think of ball games being carried out on the recreation ground, then the boundary treatment actually provides a physical barrier, a practical reason for being there, quite apart from the aesthetics of how the site looks. And all of our other comments from last time remain the same, because the roadway, as far as I can see, and the access is still the same, albeit that they are now indicating a 5.5 metre visibility display.
Can we sort of relate the parking issue to the size of the houses? I mean, basically what we're saying is smaller houses, more parking.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, smaller houses would not need as many parking spaces to comply with the standards. So it's does that sum things up as far as everyone else is concerned? Anyone got anything they want to add?
I'm happy with that.
No, I'm fine with that.
Okay, thank you. And so we come to the final application. Well, in fact, we come to the final but one, and I'll explain that in a moment. But the final application on the agenda, which is Byways Father Common, which is to construct a new barn-style ancillary building to accommodate 2 new lockable garages, a workshop, storage, and home office. As I think everyone knows, Father Common is a mix of very different properties. This property is near the upper part of Father Common, and basically what they're saying here is that they want to build this new property for these ancillary purposes. The existing building is a bungalow, and my immediate reaction on looking at these plans was there's no way that's under 30%.
Agree with you.
And so
That's right.
if we start from there, Sue.
Yes, I would agree with you. That's my main comment. And my other comment is that we need a firm condition that the building intended for garaging, which looks like quite a substantial building in separate from the house, that it should not be separated.
Yes.
It has the looking of another house to me.
Yes, I agree. Don, anything you want to add?
No, thank you.
Howard?
No.
Sheila?
I just thought it seemed very high that, 2 floors, which can be seen from the lane.
Yeah.
And it seems the first floor seems very large just for a home office and storage. And like Sue, I wondered if it could become an extra bedroom, an extra.
Yes, I think there's a danger of becoming a whole extra property. It's is the issue. Claire.
Nothing further from me.
Okay, thanks. Nick.
I had the same point about no extension of usage to residential. I think we might support the view that the roof, if it is to be built, should match the main house.
Yeah.
And I noted that they, in terms of the roof lights or the velux or whatever they are, they said it would be either tinted glass or blinds. And I don't know. We haven't talked about tinted glass before. Is tinted glass sufficient from our point of view?
It really depends on the tinting, because there is now some glazing material available which is tinted, which actually turns opaque when it's dark. And so if it's that, I've actually seen that applied to a property in Selborne, and it's very effective. So if that's what they're proposing, then I'd be quite happy with that. But I think the broader point is, I think we're going to say strong objection on the grounds that we believe it to be over the 30% extension in area. Therefore, it is contrary to the relevant policy in the South Downs local plan. If the officer is minded to give it permission, then we would request that the confirmation of roof lights will be sufficiently shielded at night, because it is an area definitely where dark skies is an issue. And B, that there is a condition attached to the development that the building must always remain ancillary to the main property and not used as a separate dwelling. Is that a fair summary of where we are on that one?
I think so.
Okay. So we then move on, and we've got details of the applications that have been approved.
But you said there was a possible extra one.
There is, yeah. I'm going to come to it under any other business. Or we can take it now. Should we take it now? We'll take it now. The extra one is Seaton, which is the site next to Newman Tollard playing fields, where, as you know, there are two new properties that are pretty well nearing completion now, or appear to be. The developers now come forward and said, well, now I've got these two properties, I'd like to build two carports. I don't know if you can bring up the probably the block plan. Yes. So the proposal now is to build two carports onto the properties. One on the left-hand property, as we're looking at it, where the tiles are shown there, but on the other property, it's again in a similar position, opposite there, where this is just indicating. They're going to be open-sided carports, so it's not a situation of building a garage, but obviously there will be a roof over the top.
What did they show before for car parking? Where was it to be? Can we remember?
It was where the tiles are shown, but it was just that they would just be parked there in the open.
Oh.
And now they're just proposing to build these carports over the top.
Quite high.
They are high, yeah.
I must say, these, I mean, I don't dislike the look of the properties, but don't look as I remember them.
No, I agree with you.
And I didn't remember that they were both so different. I mean, they're similar, but the shape is not
no, that's right. No, I mean, I'm sure they have been built according to the approved plan. But yes, I agree with you. But I actually think that the properties themselves are quite attractive. And they've, I was saying to someone earlier that, you know, they've actually fitted onto that site better than I thought they would from
I would agree with you.
The actual drawing.
If they're so high, will they intrude on the view from the road?
No, I don't think they will. Well, they will in the sense, obviously, they'll be visible, but given that the new properties are quite substantial anyway, I don't think it's going to make a major difference because they're both actually on the the only place they're really going to be visible from is from the Newman Tollard car park, because of their location on the site.
Right.
I was going to say, Keith, why do you need such a luxurious carport?
Yes, quite.
With a sort of cathedral type roof when modern cars don't rust. And so, I mean, it just seemed to me that they're trying to put an unnecessary cherry on the cake.
Yes.
I too think the houses are quite, in some ways, quite attractive, but they are very dominant.
Yes.
As compared with the other architecture around that part of the village. And having two additional large structures seems to me an unattractive addition.
Yeah. Okay. Don, any thoughts?
No.
Howard?
No,
No, I don't think so. Actually, on the rust thing, I think the evidence is that cars rust less easily if they're left out in the open. And when you start covering them up, that's when the rust starts, because you've got a warmer climate there.
Claire, any thoughts?
I don't mind them, but there is a concern that they end up with walls and doors.
Yes. Okay.
I think they're probably a bit taller than they need to be. I think I go with Nick on that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the main thing that struck me. So our members content if I say no objection. However, we would like to see the roof height lowered if at all possible.
Reduce the impact on the boundaries.
To reduce the impact on the boundary. Good point, Sue. Yeah.
I think I was proposing object for that reason.
Oh, right, okay.
They might take some notice of us if we object, but if we don't, they won't.
True. Okay. Let's put it to the vote then, I think, on this one. So all those in favour of giving it permission, albeit with that we asked for the roof to be lowered if possible.
Can't we first say, does anyone want to object? It seems to me we want to object. We don't go to that one.
Okay. So in that case, we'll change it around and we'll say objection. Yeah. And if the officer's minded to give it permission, then we would like to see the roof height reduced because of its impact on the boundary. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Thank you. So we then move on to the applications that we've got approved, which Sires Road, Willow Road, Millbrook Close, Rycroft, which is a lawful development certificate, adjacent to 2 Cardew Road, which was, if you remember, was the telegraph pole, Brickfields and Patrick Stocks Road, and refused was Eastfield Cottage, which had its lawful development certificate refused. So they now have to submit a full planning application if they want to go ahead with that change. And the one that I was very pleased to see refused was the telecommunications site at Wild Farm.
One that was missing last time, isn't it?
Because I think that's a good result that's been refused.
I think the Rycroft one is interesting because I hadn't noticed that before. Because they're saying effectively by saying they have a certificate for the use of the annex as a separate standalone dwelling, it almost supports my view that it was overdevelopment to put 3 in.
Yeah, I mean, basically they use it just.
We can't go back to that. We've done it.
No, but I mean, I say they use it to justify the additional dwellings effectively. Then we move on.
Sorry, Chair. Did Lizzie also send round one about Westwood House, I think earlier today. Am I right, Lizzie?
It was a dismissal.
That
It
was
was
from
refused.
last month.
I just thought we might want to record that the decision had made good reference, effective reference to our neighbourhood plan and the village design statement.
True.
It's
Yeah.
good to have evidence that
Yes.
these documents are actually being influential.
Yeah, and I think that's the second time we've had that. So it is good to see that certainly planning inspectors are taking good notice of the neighbourhood plan, which is what they should be doing, of course. And it's good to see that they are actually doing that. So then the TPO applications, the first one here is this oak tree that is actually on our land, but is overhanging the garden of the property in St Mary's Road. I'm not exactly sure what's happened on this one, because when I checked today, it's actually been given permission, even though apparently it's still open for comments until the 16th of December. But nonetheless, our tree warden didn't have any objection to it, so I guess that's why it's been given permission.
That was all approved.
And then we have some other TPOs that have been approved, and then we have monitoring of this neighbourhood development plan. I'm still waiting for a date with Chris Patterson, although we have now made contact and we're hoping to arrange that for January, because we both agreed there's not much point trying to have a meeting now this side of Christmas. The update on the Carla development, I don't really have anything to add this month. They've instigated their new traffic plan, which I've not had any complaints from residents since it's been instigated. So I'm presuming that vehicles are now sticking to it. And certainly the gatekeeper, for want of a better word, is now actually instructing lorries to turn left into Andrews Ash Road and disappear back down onto the A3. So unless anyone else has heard anything on the child development, I haven't got anything to add.
May I say something, Chair?
Yeah, of course, Lizzie.
To do with the SANG, the SANG plan was talking about how it's going to be open before they sell the first house.
Yes.
But their plan makes mention of planting trees and doing whatever development would need it over October, November. And when you look at the site, it doesn't look like they have done any of those things.
Right. Okay.
A few trees, but actually there haven't been any planting.
Yeah, I knew some had been removed, and that's part of the wider plan there. But okay, I'll follow that up with the officers, Lizzie, because I didn't know that.
But it's more when you read the plan to the site.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll follow that one up. Sheila, did you want to say anything?
No, nothing more.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so in which case then we come to any other business. So does anyone have any other business? I'll quickly go around. Sue?
Yes, I should have brought it up under matters arising probably from the last minutes, because at the very last item of any rail business at the last meeting, John raised the thing about the Rogate and Rake village neighbourhood plan. Did a response go in? I sent some comments through to you and to Roger and I think to Lizzie.
Yes, I believe a response has gone in. Lizzie, did we submit it?
Yes, we have sent a response. I can send that round to the committee.
That'd be good.
Things that really were to watch in the future are they've got proposing traffic calming for Rake and Hillbrow, and that's obviously everything from the Jolly Rover up to the Flying Bull. Really, it's as of much interest to us as it is to Rogate and Rake. So I do think we need to keep our eyes and ears alert to that. And the other one was, I wasn't convinced that they didn't have a sort of slightly open door under their policy H2 to the possibility of Clayton Court coming forward.
Mm.
It's not there identified as a site, but there's a sort of a
Yes.
policy there which
Yeah.
could
Mm.
let it come forward. So those were the two things that I picked up.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Sue. Howard, anything you want to bring up?
No,
Nick?
Nothing under the formal business. I got a couple of things informally afterwards.
Okay. Thank you. Don?
No, fine.
Sheila?
No.
Claire? Great. Okay. Well, in that case, then I declare the meeting closed at 9:03.
Thank you very much.
So thank you, everyone. If I don't send you before Christmas, have a good Christmas.
Oh, we're going to get there.
But I expect most of you will be at full council next week.
Not me. So I wish
Not-
everybody
Not
good.
Sue. No.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Sue.
Good night, all.
Good night.
no.
Nick, would you like me to stay on the line, or is it?
You're on mute, Nick. Nick, you're on mute.
That would be great if Lizzie would stay on the line.
Okay.
Have we stopped recording?
No, that's a good point.